and Investment Committee on Monday, January 21st, 2019 at 4 p.m. Call this to order, and we'll move right into item number 1. And I do not have any speakers for item number 1.
I'll take item number 1, I suppose.
Well, so before we get started though, I just want to say this is more of an informational meeting. We're kind of doing a update as far as the financial status of December 31st, 2018. After that, we'll go into a preliminary budget plan, but it's not really the budget calendar per se. It's just to give you an idea what we're planning and show you the committee meetings that are coming up. So you can see we have one each month to help you set your calendars.
Thank you.
We want to do that. And just to provide you more information about that before we get started in the budget process. This isn't really a budget kickoff meeting, it's all just informational. Just want to throw that in before we start.
Yeah.
Anthony's going to talk about the financial status as of December 31st.
Our financial state. Okay.
Great introduction. So today we're going to talk about the current financial state of the district through the first 6 months of the fiscal year.
Are any of those new?
Nope.
I'm sorry?
Any of those new that are on there?
No, same
The
old.
ones we used before.
Yeah, same ones.
So we'll go through water operations, wastewater operations, how those affect our reserve balances, and then we'll address any unanswered questions at that point. So to start off, operating revenues for water. So water sales were 59% of budget as of December 31st. Higher than expected, primarily due to high demand during the summer months. Ready to serve and other performed pretty much right as we would have expected. And then pumping cost recovery was 61% of budget. And that was similar to water sales due to demand, but also due to rate increases effective September 2018. So rates for pumping charges that we assess on higher elevation meters went up in September 2018. So that's what's
I
driving
got
that.
one question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Okay. Water sales. By my calculations, by my information, which is not as accurate as yours, I'm sure, in October, November, and December, we received 0 desal water, which cost us twice as much as the 7% water that we get. So explain to me why the percentage is still that high and we weren't getting any desal water, which is our biggest expense.
I might defer
I'll answer
to
any
Mike on that
water.
one.
So the sales themselves have nothing to do with the purchases. So
Right.
they combine desal and water authority water, but the sales themselves are higher, as he mentioned, because of the higher summer months, and also because of those higher summer months. If you guys remember back in the budget last year, I did a 5%. What happens if we sell 5% more? What happens if we sell 5% less? It's not a 1-to-1 relationship. So the sales are up 59 because we were selling more tier 3 water in the summer months, which brings us in more revenue. Now during the winter months, December, especially now with the rain, and I have next month it's going to be even lower, we're not getting hardly any tier 3 water. So that answers that. In terms of, you're asking desal in terms of costs or?
Yeah, I understand what you just explained, that makes sense to me, but the actual should be a lot less than the $18 million because that's figured in the budget, was figured that the first X amount, our first priority water we have to buy is desal, and our second is Old Levenheim, and then our third is Muni. So our highest cost water we didn't purchase, or we didn't get.
We didn't get, we
I
still
don't
paid
know if
for
we're
it.
still purchasing it or not, and if we are, there seems to be a problem there, in my opinion.
So Director Martin, actually what you're talking about too is going to come into effect in the next slide when we talk about water purchases. You'll see the variance in there, because that's related to water costs, more than, not necessarily water sales. Because our rates are what they are, we sell what we sell for water sales, but we purchase from the water authority the desal water, so
Okay,
that would be the question for the next slide.
Okay. Sorry, thanks. I think we're there.
So we're on the next side for operating expenses. So water purchases are actually right in line with where it was budgeted. Operating is higher than budgeted, and that's primarily due to the water main breaks over the summer months. And supporting and general admin were lower and that's mostly due to timing of purchases. So we should see that spread out over the next couple months.
Okay, so there again, let's go back to water purchases now. How much are we saving per month by not having to purchase that expensive water?
So, from what I heard, and you probably heard the same thing, our contract doesn't allow us not to.
The answer is nothing.
Yeah.
Right, zero.
Yeah, the answer is zero.
So they found in our contract that we're still responsible for paying for it, even though
So-
we're not getting it.
So the water authority could shut that connection off and transfer the water up, but they could still charge us for that rate. They have some repairs to do in their pipe, and that are warranty items that they let us know at one point, and then they said, okay, well, Vallecitos, you're good, your portion, because we built a portion of that pipe, and they built the rest of it. They said, Vallecitos, you're good, and then from there, there's no communication. Well, apparently on their side, they haven't figured out what to do with their portion of the pipe, or both portions of the pipe, so they haven't turned that pipe back on,
And they have absolutely no reason to do that.
so.
There's absolutely no impetus to get them to do that, because we're still paying as if we were getting that.
There actually is for them, but it's a different picture for them. So for them, the less desal we take directly, the less it affects their Twin Oaks plant. So in other words, if there's more desal being pushed up the hill to Twin Oaks, they actually have to ramp down their Twin Oaks plant. The more desal we take directly, it actually helps them and helps the rest of the county. However, you're talking right now the difference between what their ops feel is important, what their finance feels is important, and what their engineering feels is important, and they all feel different things are important. So they're trying to work it out. I believe Glenn has been talking to them about it, but I believe also we got the answer, and you guys probably know this more than I do, from their contract side that says, yeah, here's where we're going to shut down the system, and unless the plant shut down, we could redirect water any way we want.
So, Vallecitos entered into a contract to purchase X amount of water from them, whether they deliver it or not.
Yeah, they're delivering it through the system. They're still a water drop is a water drop with them. So that's why, for example, if they handle desal different than they handled any of their other contracts, we wouldn't be allowed to take more than our drop. So if what's our per month allotment?
3,500 acre feet a year.
261, 281, 261, 281, whatever that math is.
Whatever it is. So whatever.
281
So we're still getting all that water.
We're
It's
still
just
getting
not
we're getting a
necessarily coming-
blend. We're just getting it blended
Yeah,
instead of
but-
direct. So in other words, if
No, we're not. We're still getting our 7%. They haven't changed the
Yeah.
ratio up at Twin Oaks as to what's going into their
well,
pipes.
you got to remember in the wintertime it's way higher than 7%. The summer, the average is 7% per year. However, it's whatever the blend is. Director Martin's correct. It's whatever the blend is.
Right.
But so we take more direct desal water than our contract amounts, but we don't get charged more than our contract amount for the desal water. So in other words, and this is the same thing we explain to the homeowners. You're getting the desal water whether you get it through this source or this source, so you're getting it blended or you get it direct. And so there will be months where we take twice the allotment of desal water, but we only get charged for whatever 3,500. What is that number?
291.7.
291.7 acre feet. So every month we get charged for 291.7 acres. Some months we take 500 acre feet, but we get charged for 291.7. Well, unfortunately, now we're on the other side of that coin, which is we're getting zero through our direct desal, but we're still getting charged 291 per acre feet.
But we're still getting the 291 acre feet of water somewhere, right? From either imported water or some blend.
Through a blend.
So we're not paying for nothing.
Yeah,
right?
you're still getting it through the blend, but so is everybody else.
You're right. We're paying
The
whatever the
desal
number is,
rate.
$2,400 for that 291 unit acre feet.
291.7 acre feet.
Acre feet. 291.7 acre feet. We're still paying twice the amount that we would pay them
For
the
the
met
normal
water.
blend.
Right.
For the normal blend of met.
So we're
versus
still
desal.
paying
Yep.
for a lot more than what we're
And
getting.
that's my understanding, and I've just started scratching the surface of this, so I'm not an expert. But that is their standard agreement that they have with everybody. So they could shut off a facility.
Well,
as
it's
long as-
just us in Carlsbad, is it not? It's not
no, for
everybody.
all water, whether it's Carlsbad, whether it's their Miramar plant, their direct purchases with other agencies, it doesn't matter. The water source doesn't matter to, you know, just because it's desal, it's more expensive, it doesn't matter. They're basically, we're gonna deliver water to you, and if we deliver 1,000 acre feet in 1 month, we're only gonna charge you $291 for that month. But at the out, we have to get 3,500 for the year, is our commitment. So we may or may not get 3,500 this year because it's down, and we don't know when they're going to turn it back on. So I'm having a conversation with the engineering. Their operations seems to be running this course of action. Their finance department is just reacting to whatever the contract says. And then I think Glenn maybe, and I don't know, I know Glenn started the conversation, I don't know where he's gone, but from their engineering side, I've hit a dead end.
Okay, but we are paying roughly $1,200 an acre foot for 291 acre feet.
$2,200 or $1,200 extra. Yes, sir.
Above what we would be
Yes.
charging for Met. We're paying that extra and above for not getting it.
Yeah, we're not getting it directly through the desal.
But we're still getting.
We're getting water,
Yeah, you're still
but
getting
it's
water.
$1,200 an acre foot water, and we're paying
No,
$2,400 an
yeah,
acre foot for it.
No, I understand, but
That doesn't make sense.
It's almost like you know, we paid for that capacity. This is our contract. But as long as they serve. Now, if they shut down the plant, they can't serve us water, then we wouldn't be paying. We're still making an argument because we feel that there's a communication deficit here. They shut it down. They didn't let us know, but their point is it doesn't really matter. You're getting water, and our contract says we can do it, and so is every other contract that we have. So.
Well, we have a board member that should be out there fighting very hard for it, so I'll just bring it up to the meeting.
yeah, maybe pass along to Glenn too, that can we have like a kind of a more formal briefing on this whole thing?
Sure, I think Wes has been involved with Glenn, and I've been involved with the engineering side, so we'll probably have to get together, and I don't know where Glenn's gone. Do you know if he's had more conversations?
So what I just told you is the information I got from him last week.
Okay. So,
But the board as a whole hasn't been notified of it.
I think we're still like
I mean,
kind of getting in talks on it,
so
so.
it's a lot of money going out the door as we're getting talks. I mean, that's ridiculous that we're paying that price for the net water, for regular water. Doesn't make any sense to me at all, so. Especially when they know they're not delivering any, other than the 7% that everybody's getting. It's not a question of we're getting less, we're getting none.
Well, yeah, we're getting the normal blend that everybody else gets.
Whatever that percentage is, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Alright, so continuing on to wastewater, operating revenues, so most of our sewer service charges are fixed, so they're a little bit easier to predict. So sewer service revenue is 51% of what we budgeted. Reclaimed water sales, we actually bill that out based on what we budget for the year. And at the end of the fiscal year, we do a true up with Leeuwenhoek and Carlsbad on what we actually incurred cost wise. So we're right on par for that.
What was our true up last year at the end of the year?
256,000.
Somewhere around there. It was about 30,000 for Leeuwenhoek, maybe 38,000, and the rest was Carlsbad.
So a portion of that, and we actually overbilled them last year. So they didn't receive a December reclaimed water invoice, and they'll get a partial credit on their January.
So what percentage of reclaimed did we recapture?
Actually, we went
We-
through this exercise. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. We actually overbilled them
Okay.
last year.
Okay,
So we're giving them a credit this year.
okay. But would we have received from them what it cost us to do it? That's my question. Are we
Yeah.
operating at a loss?
And we went through a big exercise, engineering and finance with Glenn, and with lots of help from Mike. And Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, we've proven that based on operational costs to operate and deliver recycled water, we are capturing 100% of that.
Yes.
The question, I know you asked that question in past and it couldn't be an answer, we finally went through and did the math.
So it's actually break even,
Yeah.
when you consider all of our costs.
Well, there's a question and discussions about the capital costs that we will
Yep.
be going into negotiations with Carlsbad and Leeuwenhoek. I think think we've already started that.
We
those
started it,
meetings. So we'll look at how we're recapturing those, but the operational costs are being covered.
so energy, chemical, staffing, to produce and deliver and pump, all that's being captured, 100%.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And then lastly here, other revenues are so inflated, that's due to the Encina, restitution for the illegal dumping. So that was 637,000 we received back in July, so that's why that looks so.
Where were you
Out of
expecting to
whack.
get the 80,000 from? What's the other revenue normally?
Trying to think of what we've got in the
Interest.
past. Can be gain or loss on sale of stuff, it can be recovery through claims. It's pretty much miscellaneous collections.
Okay.
Operating expenses for wastewater across the board lower than we budgeted at least through December. This is again mostly related to the timing of budgeted materials that haven't been purchased yet or services that haven't been performed yet. So we would expect this to kind of smooth out a little bit towards the back end of the year. Moving on to reserves. So first line there, operating transfers. You can see here that our operating revenue exceeded our operating expenses for water by 4.1 million. And what that moved our replacement reserve balance at December 31st to 30.4 million, which is still within the threshold of the floor 7.4 million and the ceiling 32.2. As far as capacity reserves, we started the year at negative 9.2 million and improved to negative 7.4 million, so that is improving. And then for wastewater reserves, same thing there, operating transfers, our revenues exceeded our expenditures by 5.2 million. And that actually pushed our replacement reserve balance over our ceiling. So we moved $555,000 into rate stabilization to move the balance back to the ceiling. And what's kind of important to keep in mind here is this is gonna go back and forth from month to month. So if our expenditures exceed our revenues next month, take that out of stabilization, put it back to reserve. So it's gonna do that till
555 coming from the lawsuit?
a portion of it.
Gotta be the majority of it, seeing the lawsuit was 600 and something.
637,000. We're
So-
showing a net income of 5.2
But
million.
if we took that out of the equation,
Yeah, we'd be within.
which it really should be out of the equation, shouldn't be in the equation at all. So we're, I mean, I understand you want to operate at a profit, but it should be you're operating at a loss. Because that's not part of that equation, other than we have the money, but it hasn't been decided, policy hasn't been decided what to do with it.
So yeah, if you took that away, we would be below our ceiling. We still wouldn't be operating at a loss, but
Okay.
we would be below the reserve ceiling.
However, if you look at it, the dumping activities did cost the district more money because we paid a higher rate in Encina, so it did go into both sides of the ledger one way or another. It's just hard to prove out how much.
But in 1 year, it wouldn't have been 140,000.
Yeah, I don't know what it would have
Yeah,
been.
I mean,
So.
it's, if you broke it down over the years, yeah, I agree, I mean, that's sewer's money, and that's our ratepayers paying it. So I don't know.
Well,
What-
in this, per the reserve policy though, going to rate stabilization, it will help the ratepayers. So going forward, it'll be in that replacement reserve. So if we're looking at setting rates, that helps to relieve any, if there was an increase necessary, that rate stabilization would relieve that need for a rate increase. And that's why we have it designated as rate stabilization.
But it would be 670,000 that was going back to the people rather than 555,000.
Well, it's all in there though, it's all in the
So-
replacement reserve, it's just, we went over the ceiling by 555, so that's why you're only seeing the 555.
Gotcha.
And then lastly, wastewater capacity reserve started at negative 6.8 million and improved to negative 3.1. So as of December 31st, that's kind of the situation for the district. Any other questions?
Good job. Looks like we're moving out of the deep negative to the moderately negative.
To moderately negative. So, that being said, one thing I would like to go on to, and this is again an informational item, and this will have to go to this would have to go to the policy committee first before it comes here, but I just wanted to give you some information on.
Yeah, we've got the policy.
So there you go, you'll get to see this again. So it probably, it would ultimately come back to the finance committee after we do this, but what we're gonna do is look at the reserve policy. And having the rate stabilization, it currently states that any excess over the ceiling first goes to OPEB, and then it goes to rate stabilization. So if we're to look at the reserve policy, some possible revisions that we could do, as you can see here, I've gone through and just added in, see it says OPEB, then we could have PERS, and then it would go to rate stabilization. So this is something for the policy committee to consider changing to add the wording so that we could actually allocate that money to PERS before it goes to rate stabilization. In effect, still saving the ratepayers money, but designating it available for PERS as well as OPEB and rates. So I just to show you, this is the reserve policy. There's a few places you added in here. Just there, and there. There wouldn't be much more language required than that, but again, that'll be up to the policy committee to look at the wording of the reserve policy itself. Once that's done, then we could bring it back here and say we have this much in rate stabilization, and it would be done at year end. Because you're not going to do it now, because next month it could change. Next month it could go down to 300,000, it could go up to 700,000. You want to wait till June 30th before you actually set the next year's budget. And if you've got $1 million in there, then you could say, we want to designate this $1 million to go to pay PERS. So that's an option, just something I wanted to show you for information. Then next, oops, I
What-
didn't click on music player.
Have you jumped to item number 2? Is that what that was?
That was the reserve policy changes.
Okay, so now are you getting ready to go on to 3?
Correct.
Okay, so before we do that, I have a speaker for agenda item number 2, Mr. Hunsaker.
I think I'll pass.
Okay. Then we'll move on to item number 3.
Okay, and it is this one. Okay. Get mouse pad. Okay, again, informational. This is going to be going into. Wanted to show you this. This is. I made one change to the slide here just to keep it exciting.
2019.
To 2020. See, watch this. Watch this. See?
Oh,
it's
ooh,
magic.
hey.
Yeah,
Fancy.
I'm impressed, I'm impressed.
I had to actually draw that with a mouse. So I do this one here.
That's why I went first.
Okay, so we're not necessarily in budget season yet. We're not kicking it off, but I got a little excited, a little ahead of myself here. So here's the budget party page. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the preliminary budget calendar. This is just going to go through kind of changing last year's schedule to this year's dates, possible committee dates, so you can set up your calendar. The first one will be, I'll show you in a second. And then after that, we'll talk about some other possible committee items that we can fit in there. It's going to be a busy committee schedule this season, so hopefully we have time to get it all in.
Good.
But as you know, we like to keep you in the loop on everything that we do to make sure you're involved in.
It does make our board meetings so much easier for everybody. There's a big difference between
Last
this
year,
year,
the year
last
before.
year, and the years before, where it was, yeah.
It's a key part of the process, so we're going to keep doing it and hopefully doing it well.
Yeah, you are.
So the preliminary budget calendar. So in February, we start our internal process. This is where we update the budget numbers with last year's actuals and get this year and do the projections for 2019. Then we get the budget requests. But the important part of this slide is going to be the finance committee meeting on February 25th, 2019. That's a tentative date. If you want to look at your calendars and see if you're able to fit that in at some point. If you have recommendations for a different date, I think it's on a Monday. I have to look at the calendar. But during that meeting, we'll finalize the budget calendar, so hopefully we can set all the committee dates at that point and get everything worked out to go through what we're planning on doing. And we'll go over the budget versus actual for the last 5 years like we do every year, explain any discrepancies and talk about what's going forward. In March, that's when we actually start getting the departmental budgets and compiling them. We'll complete the projections, work on the debt service forecasts and the reserves. And the important part here is there will be, or we have a tentative date for the finance committee meeting on March 18th. So far we've got one per month, one in February, one in March. At that meeting,
Are they on Monday? Do they always keep on the same
I
day?
think they were all on Mondays.
So 20, there are Mondays so far.
Yeah. So, yeah, it should be Monday, March 18th. That'll be to review the operating budget requests. We'll have Ed here for that to go over everything that's been requested, discuss the items that we want to, why they're there, and so on and so forth. April's a little bit more of a busy month. We have 2 committee meetings scheduled for April. The April 1st, April Fool's Day, so we get to pull some jokes on you that day, I guess. And the joke is, the first joke is that we're gonna go over the capital budget request, cause we never get those done on time.
So we'll have to talk about, so I think the March 25th meeting is fine, but I think I'll be traveling, for work on the 1st, so I might have to switch that up.
That's right. Yeah. And that's part of this process, so we can plan it, get them scheduled, and these are way ahead, so we can always change the dates if we need to. which
That's
is,
good too, I'm out of town.
Well,
so
it's,
after
yeah,
the
it's
point
spring break, it's spring break for all the kids.
That's why,
Yeah.
spring break for us.
Yeah, and when we get to the future committee items, there's some other stuff we'll need to add in possibly in March and April. So we may need an additional meeting in March, and maybe with moving the April meeting, we can fit the other item in
Yeah.
there too, so.
Maybe we can do it.
So the second one we have scheduled is the 29th of April. That's to go over the draft proposed budget, assuming we've got, draft numbers at that point, and discuss any other items. In May, we actually reviewed the draft proposed budget, revise and refine it, and we have the tentative date for a full budget workshop on May 29th right now. That's subject to change as well, but just a date, because we're planning on hopefully having the approved recommended budget June 5th.
Is that a regular meeting, June 5th?
Yes. So there's a June 5th meeting and a June 19th meeting. That kind of gives us the potential to push it to June 19th if there's a delay in the schedule. And there may be this year, well, I'm not saying there may be, but there could be, because this year we're actually working on rates. So that leads me into the future committee items. So the first thing here is we're gonna have to go into a cost of service study, start working on rates. And in doing that,
Can we just do across the service? Are we doing this yearly now?
so
It hadn't been done in 5 years when we first did it, whenever that was.
so the
It's
reason
not been yearly.
And so the reason for doing it this time though is because it was done 2 years ago when we set rates. We wanna do a cost of service study this time so we can do it right. And not that it was done wrong last time, and I probably shouldn't have said that.
I have no problem as long as the rates are going down.
Well, yeah, and I don't know where the rates will go, but we would like to actually hire a rate consultant and have them come in and give us a good working rate
But are
model.
we doing this every year?
No,
Or we just do it?
we did it 2 years ago
About 18 months ago, I believe.
to set the previous rates, which were, it was a 2-year rate schedule, so.
But we increased the rates to the ratepayers
Yes.
at that time.
Yeah, but we had a 2-year rate setting, so we have to do, since it was 2 years, we're due to set the rates again.
Our rates can't be going up that astronomically. Because last time it was water's going up and, well, that's stagnant now. I mean, there's no,
Well, they're not necessarily going up, we just have to set them, they have to be approved per Prop 218. So we have to do a Prop 218 once to get the rates set
Okay.
going forward, so they could
so they
go.
would go down.
Basically, we'll be looking at the
That's the
budget
goal,
and using that to
right?
set the rates. So
Cool.
we don't know what direction they'll be going, we're gonna be looking at the budget and using that to set the rates.
I
based on
hope,
the-
I believe in you guys.
I
believe.
I believe in Mike too.
I believe, Mike, I believe, we can go down.
If anybody could do it, you guys
I
could.
definitely hope it goes up less.
Always
So-
James.
So anyway, we're planning on looking at doing a cost of service study. And for that, we'd wanna bring in a consultant, and of course, we'd have the consultant introduced to you, one meeting, probably this introduction, their plan, so on and so forth. And then.
Why can't you just go by the one 2 years ago and use the CPI index?
So my opinion of the one that was done 2 years ago, I'm not satisfied with the model that was prepared for us. It's not
Too high, huh?
Well, it's not user friendly. The way that it's set up, and I think Mike probably also has an opinion on this. We would like to get an improved rate.
Mike set it up.
800,000
No, no.
lines.
What did you
Mike
say?
did not set this one up.
And it
Who
was
set it
done-
up?
Black and Beach did.
Well, not the last one.
Oh, oops, well, we won't go into the, let's say we had one prepared by Black and Beach and there was one prepared subsequently.
By someone else.
We would like to get one that fits the current staff that works with our current way of,
Oh, yeah, our current staff is thrifty, I agree with you.
we like to think
I
so.
can't wait to see.
What's the consultant for those types of services gonna run us?
And before we get into doing that, or actually, this is just a possibility. We are going to look at what it cost us last
That'd
time.
be an RFP, I would imagine.
There will be an
Yeah,
RFP.
so you don't have to throw out a number.
Yep.
In case you're listening, the bidders.
So we'll have steps in that process where we go out for an RFP, get bidders for it, and we'll see what happens. But this is just to show you that during that process, we're gonna keep the finance committee involved in it, so we'll.
Yeah, I'd like to know, as you go through it and you kind of start developing your scope of work and stuff, I'd like to know like what exactly they're gonna build for us, okay? And how that's gonna help us, you know, in the future as far as figuring out our cost of service and what our billing rates are gonna be. So I'm not really clear on what they're providing us.
My question is, we have the guy here that does 5 million lines of information. Can it be done internally?
Yeah, I mean, possibly.
Fairly and internally? I guess that's my
Yeah, the
question.
one hesitancy I have, I will say, is that there's some engineering stuff in a cost of service study model about max per day, max per this, all this other kind of stuff that I do not have the expertise on.
Do you?
I don't know what you're talking about a max per day.
They have when you build the pipes, obviously, how you were saying,
Oh.
you could, if water were to go 24 hours a day at a steady stream,
Yeah,
you could
that-
probably build
that's
a pipe like that.
Yeah, he's talking about like the level of service. So, we can't, you can't spill sewer every day when everybody flushes, so you build it for peak demands and stuff like that. Yeah, we know that stuff.
So there's industry standards about certain ratios that I don't have the expertise at.
Our
Um,
engineering department does.
Yes, however, with a cost of service study, because of the Prop 218 process, I would strongly recommend you have an outside person develop the strategy for that
Even
with
if we
our
were glad to put a sign back up with your name on it on the door? Didn't we get him to do that?
The-
Nobody
As
has their
opposed to
names,
that,
we
well-
just have our titles.
I guess the question.
Oh.
Yeah, just our
Well, he
titles.
get his name if he can do it.
There we go.
Save us a lot of money.
That's right. We can afford that.
Does every time, I know you have to go through a 218 process every time we set rates, and it's a standard practice of doing a cost of service study to set rates? Is that the standard? You do a cost of service study, you set the rate, then you do the 218, is that kind of the clean way of doing it? I'm asking because I don't know.
It helps lend expertise and credibility to make sure that your rates are legally defensible. That's really important, especially in the current environment.
And this model, what we put in the RFP is to have a working model, one that I could then take over.
And manipulate.
So once it's developed with the correct methodology, I would then learn it inside and out and be able to provide the next one. And that would ease my mind in terms of being able to provide appropriate data.
And going forward, we wouldn't have to do this on a regular basis. Once it's set, it's more of if we brought another consultant in, it would just be to say, okay, we bless what
We
you've
bless
done.
it,
Not for
a
full
peer review
development.
type.
Audit and verification.
I could be wrong, but the one that was done 2 years ago, wasn't that done with that in mind? Whomever did it.
So the one that was done 2 years ago was done by the former AGM. The one that was done before that by Black and Beach, how long ago was that one?
4 years ago,
4 years
3.5,
ago.
4 years ago.
So it's been 4 years since we've had our rate model developed and blessed, and it actually changed 2 years ago. So that's why there's the feeling that it's probably a good idea to go out and get that new model developed now.
Yeah, makes sense now.
So that's what we're looking at,
Interesting.
and that could possibly add.
Somebody's looking down, for sure.
Definitely.
Definitely. I'm kidding. Ours cracks.
So then that would possibly add 2 to 3 meetings into the schedule, so we'll have to see if we can fit those in, or we can just combine them with other meetings, depending on how that works out. But I just wanna give you sort of information about that so that you're aware that
Yeah.
that's something we're looking at. Another thing we're actually looking at is we're revising the CAT fees. We've been working on developing and
I
revising.
thought that was something that was coming up. I thought we already see it.
Well, we've
My
actually
understanding.
been in talks with a consultant now, James, if you wanna talk
Sure,
about that.
so we do have a working model on the cap fees. And and you can't do the cap fees before you do the master plan. Master plan's out for circulation, so now we finally have the information to put together for the cap fees. So, we've been working internally with the working model, making sure that all the assumptions from the previous, what we call the nexus study, still apply. Cause if they don't, you have to do a new nexus study. So the good news is, they still apply. So now we can work with the existing working model, because all the assumptions still apply, and work through the whole process. But we still have a small contract with a consultant who's a cap fee and rate expert mainly for cap fees. to look at it, to do basically an audit review and basically a report, and also help us if we've missed something or our assumptions are incorrect to make sure to help correct it. So we're gonna have that person go through, make sure that all the work done on the working model internally was done correctly, our assumptions correctly, we applied the master plan correctly to it, and then from there on, we're gonna move forward, start meeting with the board, and then meet with the outside stakeholders also.
And sort of the question there is if you would like us to bring them to the finance committee so that you can be updated on that, because that could be another possible item.
Well, I was gonna say, could that be available for the 25th of February, a month?
So you wanna combine the budget with cause it's the same day.
I don't want to, I mean, we can pick another day for it,
Yeah,
but I'd like to
Well,
see it come in
yeah.
February.
And we might actually have,
Well, we might be able to make it work the same day. Let's see.
There might be a lot for one day, but
We have to check with the consultant because
Oh,
right.
they don't live in San Diego County anymore.
So can she travel here?
She can, we'd have to pay her expenses. That's just it. And she does come out every month for work, but it's usually the third week of the month that she comes out.
where does she come from?
Austin, Texas. She moved, she's partially retired now, and she still has her company, and she her grandkids are there.
is she the only one in the country that can do this?
No, but she's the one. She did R. She's done Olivenheim. She's done OTIs. She's done almost every growth agency in Southern California. In the last 20 years, she's probably done over 50% of them. That's an exaggeration, but she's done a lot. And then she also set up the previous Nexus study and the previous model. So if we hired somebody else, they would have to start from the beginning. So her time and her fee was, a lot less expensive, and she already has the expertise. And she's also
Yeah.
renowned and well
Well,
respected.
I don't wanna fly her out here for a finance meeting.
I mean, if we can make it work,
I mean,
we'll
if
make it
she's,
work.
at some point,
So,
if she has to make a presentation to the entire board,
You said she's out
that'd
here
be one
anyhow?
thing, but not just
every
come for this.
third week of the month, almost every month for
Maybe
for
March, I don't
work.
know, whatever work.
Yeah, but no matter what, she'll be doing a report, and there's a few meetings. So there is a couple face-to-face meetings. We anticipate her coming to at least one board meeting in the scope. So
And that's not to say that we couldn't give you a status update at the February 25th meeting
Yeah.
to say, here's where we are with the cap fees.
That'd be great.
and we'll have enough information probably by the end of February for that.
Yeah, because we're anticipating that, so it was like, hey, the sooner you get it, the sooner we collect more money.
So I believe that's all I have.
From developers, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah, wanna put that in there.
yeah, for
Make sure
developers,
that
yeah.
gets on the record.
Otherwise, if you saw the budget report, you could see this cap fee deficit's going down tremendously already from collecting money on existing cap fees.
You know what I think though, and you mentioned it, and I just say it because you mentioned it, calling us a growth agency. I've noticed that Vista and Escondido are outgrowing San Marcos exponentially. I mean, there's a lot more going on between the industrial, light industrial over in Vista and the apartments in Escondido are unbelievable. They're going in by the thousands. So I don't know that we're that much of a growth agency anymore. I think we're more or less a normal agency. We don't have that many places to grow. We have some infill, that's all we got.
No, what the definition of growth agency may be different. It's not growing all at once. We have 30+% of growth in our water boundaries. So that's not even all infill. We have between infill and vacant land, we have over 30% growth, and a lot of it is the growth potential based on the city's land. It's all based on city land use and Sandag projections.
Right.
So, but if you look at city land use, which a lot of that will probably never happen, we're only 50% built out. We're going to double. I don't think it'll ever get to, well, not in my lifetime, it won't ever get to that. But if you look at just the Sandag projection, you have 30% growth in the water just alone, because we're going from 100 to roughly 130, 128 in the next 20 years, according to Sandag. Sandag may be wrong, but if you look at the city's projection, we're only 50% built out. In sewer, we're more in the 40s, 40, 42. But you got to remember, our sewer service boundary is smaller than our water service boundary, but our sphere of influence is equal. So we have a lot of land. Now, granted, a lot of the portion in the north on the other side of the hills, we never anticipate to come over because it flows into the San Luis Rey Basin.
Right.
It doesn't gravity towards us. but even with that, you're looking at 40% plus growth. And if you just look at the city plans of what's on the books, they have 8 to 10,000 EDUs that are coming in. Now, all EDUs aren't units, but if you
No,
make
and,
an equivalent,
and I think the vast majority of that is the creek walk, which may never ever be built now.
the creek
There's
and
a lot.
university villages, you know.
A lot might not be built out there ever also.
Absolutely.
That's county.
Yeah, absolutely. No, University District, University
University.
Villages, right there. The
Talking about
new downtown.
North City.
Yeah. So-
Oh, yeah, North
yeah,
City.
North City.
North City.
Yep.
But
I
also,
think Donald's doing a great job.
but also like those new condos that they're building, in Vista, right on the border of San Marcos, out there by Palomar Airport Road and San Marcos Boulevard.
Yeah,
While those were in Vista, we're servicing them.
Yep.
right, but we already have that. I mean, that's a known quantity, right?
No, but I mean, that's still growth, those
Yeah.
new ones are going in, and that's, and so, but then you got our Vista, they're seeing a lot of redevelopment growth in their downtown area, a lot of revamp, a lot of new stuff going in commercial. But a lot of that commercial stuff, it doesn't add a lot of EDUs, cause they're taking out some lower use EDUs and putting it with higher use EDUs, so they're only gaining the delta, as in they're
Yeah. No,
90.
I'm looking at the
yeah.
new industrial, light industrial, that whole park is just booming. There's a 200,000 square foot building they just added over there.
You're like off of Sycamore, that area?
Yeah, yeah, it's just, I mean, it's unbelievable how they turn around, they're building up more buildings than they're filling.
Yeah.
So it's just like Carlsbad used to do.
And Carlsbad's getting close to being built out. I mean, they got their last big development's done, and they got a few other things
Brescia.
going on.
Yeah,
You know, Brescia's their last big master plan.
yeah, but
Mm.
San Marcos now
What's
we
the-
got master plans.
Is that new neighborhood that's going in our neighborhoods, that's going in by like Calavera Hills, is that Carlsbad, or is that something different?
Carlsbad's there.
Yeah, I think that they're still finishing that up, it's not done yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's all underway. They don't have
Yeah.
any new ones starting.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, if you look at those cities and by population, their percent growth, they have a lot going on right now. But in general, we have more growth over the future. I mean, the only other agency that has more growth than us is Otay Water District, and portions of the city of San Diego just by sheer volume, but not by percentage. So it's your growth agency until you're really at the point where you're no longer can rely on cap fees to come in to pay for your capital projects.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay. We'll move on to other business. Public comment, persons wishing to address a matter not on the agenda may be heard at this time. However, no action will be taken until this matter is placed on a future agenda in accordance with board policy. And public comments are limited to 3 minutes. I have one speaker, Mr. Hunsaker.
Okay. I'm wondering why there hasn't been any real public notice that we aren't getting any desal water. And I'd like to know what the cause is, if this is another bacteria attack. There's also a big difference in the quality of water that we're at issue. Desal is pretty pure. And Colorado River water and the water that MWD is providing has been lessened, and we're getting more Colorado River water, and the Colorado River water is getting more saline. So we're getting a substantial hit in water quality that should be addressed. Also, I thought we paid extra in order to get assured amount of desal water directly. And I'm wondering why that capability didn't kick in, so that if there is no desal water, of course, that's one issue, but to be sold lower quality water and at a higher price is a real question to me. And I remember one Water Academy topic, and that was the desal water. And I guess it was PR department for San Diego County Water Authority. He mentioned, well, Poseidon doesn't get paid anything if they don't produce any water. Well, did that happen? There's also a question in my mind. Evans mentioned that the NWD is storing 100,000 acre-feet of water in San Vicente. Why aren't we just buying it at current rates rather than storing it for them and then potentially have to pay more for it later on? I think that it's our reservoirs. We should have bought it, put it in our reservoirs, and it shouldn't be there as a futures contract for NWD. Let's see, in one of the previous meetings, our GM mentioned that he has been sitting down with the BIA and discussing how the new cap fees will affect them. I think it's appropriate that no one has such advanced knowledge at this point. Would appropriate if they say, well, we'd like this, but it isn't appropriate to say, hey, we got this plan here going now. And from the sounds of it, they're gonna like it, and I just wonder why. So that's all I had.
I know we're not too engaged, but maybe you can just put the bacteria thing to rest, because I know that it's
Sure.
more about the pipe than.
Sure, yeah, really good. So it's basically a warranty issue on the pipe. There's a couple of bit of rust spots showing through on the inside lining, which is pretty normal for steel. Their engineering department thinks it's not a big deal. The ops department thinks it's a big deal. Water quality is water quality from a water standpoint. So if it meets Title 22 drinking water standards, the water quality is water quality. From a CWA standpoint, they cannot deliver drinking water that doesn't meet water EPA and state and federal water quality regs.
And keep in mind though, that we're paying extra for this high quality desal water.
That's
and
why
we're
the
not
board
getting
member,
all the
that's why the
advantages.
board member brought it up, so. Okay, with that, move, is there a move to adjourn?
So move.
Huh?